Welcome to the Future of Publishing online event organized by Beletrina Publishing House along with Center for Creativity at the Museum for Architecture and Design. In the next 4 days, our publishing experts in Ljubljana will be joined by the experts in Vienna, Zagreb, Milan and Madrid. They will be searching for the answers on the currently most exciting questions in the area of publishing. How COVID has affected the reader, what are new trends in digital and content marketing, how to optimize production of printed books, what are the new trends in digital publishing, what are the best examples of good practices. Today, we will focus on the reader and the buyer. To begin with, let's hear the opening words from Marko Podjavoršek from Center of Creativity and Eva Premk-Bogataj from Beletrina Publishing House.
Hello. Probably there are more English speaking, so probably I could talk in English. I'm really pleased and I'm glad that due to our COVID times, we have the second event with Beletrina. So on the topic of publishing in this Central for Creativity partnership network, because that means that also the publishing can adapt to search and look for new ways how to overcome these challenges that we are dealing with them. And I would like to just maybe some of you already had contacts and deal with Center for Creativity, and some of you don't know what we are doing. We are some kind of entry point for creative sector in Slovenia. That means that we are trying to make good environment, try to help to make a supportive environment for creative sector, from music to publishing to architecture or design, through our goals or pillars that we are trying to reach. That means we are trying to develop programs to develop new products and services, so the creative sector can make new things, and we are trying to promote these activities of creative sector and to collect some data on creative sector through the research, which is very important to build new programs for this supportive environment. So we are glad that at that time in the COVID, we never stopped, and we tried to work and to do our best on all these areas. At the moment, there is exhibition of Slovenian design in Berlin. We just finished in Vienna, so we are making some creative accelerations for the creatives to bring their ideas to the investors. Then we are expecting this year also the grants for creative sector in cooperation with the Ministry of Culture, which gave us already good results in previous 2 years. So I said, I think we have to deal with the creative sector and to help creative sector on different levels. And definitely is networking and connecting and events like Beletrina is doing every year are very important to deal with challenges, to know what are our challenges, and to try to make new results and attract a new public to each creative sector. So I'm really glad that this will take a few days, and we will have really good, interesting topics that are really important for each creative or each team in creative sector to help get new information. So I wish you all the best in these days, and hopefully we will be stay tuned all the time. And next year, I hope we will see a live event without screens and microphones, and to discuss also in person. So thank you.
Ja, najlepša hvala. Jaz bom pa kar v slovenščini. Sorry to all international participants. I will address our audience in Slovene because most of them are Slovenian publishers. So thank you, Marko Podjavoršek from Center of Creativity for Creativity. I don't know, both, I think. Torej, lepo pozdravljeni vsi, ki vas privlači knjiga, vsi, ki se kakorkoli ukvarjate s knjigo. Tu smo pravzaprav zato, ker se v zadnjem času, predvsem v COVID in post-COVID obdobju, dogajajo na področju založništva velike spremembe. S pomočjo Centra za kreativnost Beletrina že drugo leto uvaja projekt, ki nagovarja izzive, s katerimi se srečujemo. Govorimo o prihodnosti založništva, pa mogoče je to kar zelo ambiciozno, ker še sedanjosti ne obvladamo, ne poznamo, pravzaprav ne vemo, kaj se dogaja, težko sledimo, pa vendarle si želimo, da smo v stiku s praksami, ki se dogajajo v tujini, in Beletrina se tukaj izkazuje zopet za igralca, ki razmišlja vnaprej. Zelo smo veseli, da ste se odzvali v takšnem številu. Pozdrave strani mojega vodstva, Mitje Čandra, Aleša Štegra in seveda Alme Čavšević, ki bi morala danes nagovoriti to prezenco, audienco, pa se ni mogla udeležiti dogodka. Mislim, da bo zelo veliko zanimivega, zato kar takoj predajam besedo Kseniji Horvat. Ksenija, izvoli.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Marko. And I will proceed in English, of course, since we have international guests. We are now joined by Anna Berlin, not from Berlin. Anna Berlin is based in Vienna. Anna is a specialist for communication and public relations, founded PR agency ABC, which specializes on projects from the areas of architecture, art, design, literature, creative industries. Her book, Kiss the Messenger, is a must-read in PR sector. Anna, welcome. We were once told that killing a messenger is more or less futile act of despair, but to kiss the messenger, that is something new. Tell us about it.
Hello, thank you so much for having me on. You see, I'm coming from PR, so I bring you some cat content in the beginning. So this is like our very old Rosa. She's like some 20 years, and she, takes her attention as well. Welcome,
She's
everybody.
welcome. She's welcome too.
Yeah, she's always very present if you don't need her much. So we're jumping into like 4 days of like Zooming and digital contenting, and I hope we can do a first fresh start. And I'm coming from a very practical background. I'll tell you some more on what I do and why I work with Beletrina over Sopolis, for that matter, and how we learned on how we use different methods to kind of like enlarge the audience for books in the publishing sector. I try to be as practical as possible. We did this lecture once before, so it's glad that I see you this time, because it actually helps if you have somebody on the screen that you can address it to, because we are used to this kind of like digital lecturing. Nevertheless, it's very odd and very different to what we are used to when having talks. But we are starting with the technical issues of like sharing my screen. So let's see if that's working. I think so. We did test everything. I think you do see it, and now we blah blah blah. Hold on, let's just try this. Everybody sees my screen. So we are called ABC Works. It goes back on like Anna Berlin Communications. And I'm just quickly starting on who we are. We have our, communication. I found the agency about 10 years ago, and it was a bit of a necessity because there was nobody really in the field that we are acting in, taking the niche. So we are focusing very much on visual genres like architecture, also property, design, the arts, literature, and other projects that are based in culture. With Beletrina and Versopolis, we came in touch because we were doing a workshop in Maribor, and actually on my way to Maribor, I was phoning my mother, telling her about it, and she's like, "Oh, did you know that my father, your grandfather, was born in Maribor?" I didn't even know until then, actually, that I have such strong relations to Slovenia. And I have to say, ever since we started working in Slovenia, so maybe we have came across, actually, so maybe we know some of you who are participating now, and we have seen each other before. Anyway, so that was the reason why we came to work with Versopolis and Beletrina. So literature became a bigger part in our doing, and I'll tell you a bit more in the praxis of how we do things, because sometimes it's a method and it always actually pretty much works the same. Maybe briefly on my person. So it's Anna Berlin. I have a grandmother who comes from Berlin. It's a bit confusing, and sometimes I make the joke that if people are searching PR Berlin because they are a big company of architecture in Berlin, and then they end up with Anna from Vienna. But anyways, that's part of the PR. Cool. So I found the company about 10 years ago. I did live in the US, and I was teaching in France at the Sorbonne. I was working as a journalist, and I was working in the field of the visual arts. And that might explain a bit of that the approach that I have in communications is quite large and quite diverse, because I'm not coming out of the world of agencies, but the background is I studied theater science and political science. And maybe that's part of the secret, because our world is, shifting basically every year. When I started the company 10 years ago, nothing was like today. The social media was still in the very beginning. Newsletters where MailChimp just came up, and actually, that's part of the business, I think, and that's the same is true for publishing. Nothing stayed the same. Publishing changed so immensely and so greatly in numbers, in channels, in audience, in getting people to your product. So to me, my background in having worked in different sectors was very helpful. And I guess you are probably looking back on a very diverse biography. And I think this is of advantage, because there is not one method that works every single year the same, and it's very different. I captured, and thank you for the introduction of that, in We Get Back to It on the Kiss the Messenger. So far we only have it in German. I know that most Slovenes actually do speak all the languages that are necessary, including German, but I'll try to get an English translation sometime soon. So this is me working with a small team. I quickly capture on what we are working at. So it's lots about consultancy strategy. It's lots about, because building up, and this is what publishing houses usually do for the author, building up a brand, a name, an image that people know and trust is like the big first step that you need to grow. I had a nice picture painted from somebody the other day in a podcast, and it says, how do you attract and how do you catch butterflies? You don't take the net in and try to run after them. You grow a garden. You grow a garden, and the butterfly will come, to you. And this is basically, the picture that we would like to paint. That if we have those, brand development, positioning, it all sounds like typical vocabulary of consultants. But the truth is, it's all about trust, and building up your publishing houses sometimes over decades. The channels might change and the methods might change, but that people trust that in your quality products, in your choices of authors, in your knowledge of the market, in the literature that you aim, that you love, is very much that. So this is kind of like the bottom line. Then, we do lots of classical media campaigns, because I still believe that the media is not dead, it's just more diverse, and we're working more in niche than ever before. So I think, you know, even if I believe still in mass media, I think that going the extra mile over the journalists in order to have the critics, you know, and have their judgment is worth it. We will talk lots about, you know, digital and social media in this little lecture today, because it is like the one thing that you can do basically on your own, meaning you and your team, you and your publishing house, you and your company, you and your book, basically. And it actually all works the same as a method. You know, again, there, you can't do it overnight. It's not like because you are finally done with your book that everybody was waiting for it. So you need to establish and work on those channels beforehand in order to have the, you know, the garden that you need to get the butterflies. Very important is, you know, the whole part of like the networking, doing events and all those things. We're, you know, barely getting back into doing this now, and of course we all feel that it's, you know, Austria is like awakening after the lockdown, and people are just somehow going nuts. You know, we have, I mean, I tell you that in the end, but it's like, so we're back to meeting people, and we do trainings and workshops. Let me just briefly, what I already, you know, tried to say. So what usually happens, you know, a client, you know, in your case, a publication, an author, so the company is approaching you and they have a need. So we're talking about, you know, what's actually needed. Very importantly is, you know, what are actually your objectives, you know, because we always say more money, more clients, more readers, more, I don't know, more career steps, but, you know, sometimes this is actually not the objective. You know, sometimes you don't need, I don't have a huge distribution of my book, you know, so I published a couple of hundreds, you know, which is not much. But the thing is, to me, for my book, for example, it was important to use it kind of like as a business card for myself, so I can use it for my own next steps, and to actually bring it to the few people who really need it in the end. Thank you for the must read. I did hear that in the introduction. It's very sweet. So yeah, clarifying the objectives is a very important thing at first, and it's not always the obvious thing. What we usually then do in another session that's similar to a workshop is that to create a narrative, you know, to find what is actually the story behind, you know, with books and with publications, it's all about stories in the end, right? So, but sometimes, you know, we do advertisement in a larger sense for architecture, for buildings, for, you know, festivals that are taking place all over the city and have all kinds of, you know, different events taking place. So you don't have that one personality, you don't have this one face that you can actually transport. So you have to think closely on what's the best story that I can get out of my project. And that's actually defining the strategy and the method and sticking to it. So then we head and say, well, this is our story. This is actually what we want to, because you can't give the whole story of your book. You know, it doesn't make sense. You want people to read it in your book, you know, so it's not necessarily that you need it in a nutshell, and you don't need to describe everything. You just need something that's intriguing and making people curious. And this might not be the same thing for every channel, you know, so this might be, look at it in detail how I did it, but this might shift from the different, you know, channels that you use, and therefore the content is shifting. That should lead to a campaign. We call this a campaign and not a session, because when we understand campaign, it also has the idea of time. You know, you need to create something like a climax. Of course, you publish a book and then hopefully the book will be out there for 100 years. The thing is, you need, you know, the attention span of all of us is very short and became very short. So another thing is that you create something like a timely, that's usually for publishing houses, it's the fairs, it's the, you know, publishing of the catalog, it's maybe like a reading with the author, a book signing, something like this. But you need to create something that has a timeline coming with it, so people feel that they have to engage now, buy the book now, click on the post now. So this is also important, so we call it a campaign. And that hopefully leads to communication, meaning in like a small, thing, it's like a post on your website, it's a post on your social media. It might as well be an article that's published in the newspaper. It might be a television, a visit of your author, whatever. We call it a communication thing. And then it's important that that's not the end, it's the beginning. So sometimes we take all this effort and make those steps, and then we feel like we have done already a lot, or we have, already published a book or something. So, but that's actually the beginning, and that should lead to some results, and then you repeat it, and it's like going in cycles and in circles. If you want to learn more about what we do, it's best to visit the website. You will see the website is very simple and very much working more on the branding side, on like who we are, and with pictures. And sometimes we use Pinterest as a thing that I can also advise everybody to do additionally to your website, because you can combine all kinds of different, not only imagery, you can also use words but it's a very visual approach for people to have a quick overview. It's a bit like the Google image search on who you are, and sometimes that's easier to find your way around than on your own website. Yeah, as mentioned, we use Kiss the Messenger, the book. I have it right here. We use the book a bit as the Blaupause, as kind of like the example on how we worked on the publishing PR side for that. And this is actually, of course, just all the things that we are talking in this my lecture today is kind of like not your core job, because you come from a publishing house, so your job is usually to find the authors, to work on the words, to work on the literature, to do all those things. But this part is as important as finding and curating your program, is this part of actually transporting it to the public you need, because otherwise we don't need a publishing house. Then there is somebody who's writing, and your part is to sell it. So you have to embrace it, because sometimes, and that's what I find always sometimes interesting, and you have the same thing in the visual arts with galleries, they don't need to be the artist, and it's not done, the work is not done by saying you are a great artist, you are a fabulous author, I like your work, then you're a fan, then you're not a publishing house. So embracing the selling part is something this is why people come to you, this is why people come to me. It's not so this part is obviously as important as many other parts in the field. All right, so we were working on Kiss the Messenger. I was working on it, quite some time, never really working on it, but I felt that there is nothing on the market that actually gives you very blunt information on like how long is a press release, how do I write the press release, what's the timing of a press campaign, how do I find the addresses and the email addresses and the right people I would like to address my contents to, what images do I use, what resolution do I use. It's lots of parts in PR as in every other field. It's like little these tools. How many times do I still get like images that are 10 times too big for what I need? I don't need 300 gigabytes, files that are just like blocking my computer. But sometimes those small details are responsible for like a flow of work, and why journalists are picking up your stories or picking up the phone when you're calling, because you make life easier for them. That's the bottom line basically. So yeah, so this book is very much on like addressing the fields of what this can be. So here we are. So we take, again, we have the book is ready. Finally, at some point the book is ready. We take the publication, and now it's all about how to bring it to the right audience, how to address those core objectives that I formulated and defined before. What we did, we translated for different other channels, because having the book on my desk and in some bookstores is lovely, but you wanna have it basically. That's not necessarily where my readers are. And I published it with a small Berlin publishing house who are, very much in the thinking. They're like me, and they're good in social media, and they address kind of like the artists, the designers, the graphics that I think could need my book. But me as a PR person, I cannot just put everything on them. I used, of course, the tools that we have. So one big step is you translate your book, which is mainly words, no images whatsoever, into something that is visual, that you can contextualize it in order to adapt it for the other channels where my readers supposedly are, and not just, keep it in the box. It's important to understand the channel. We have a look at it in a minute, because not every social media channel works the same. And then you repeat it. And this is something where I'm like a bit stuck at the moment, because we published it in January, and I guess everybody knows that. So we had our first, what I call, campaign before, and now it's a bit of like, the rest of the work kind of like hit me again. And so the last thing I do at the moment is repeating, the engagements and the campaigns to work on the book and have it again brought to the audience and the interest for people. So first thing that we did, and it's all a bit banal if I talk about it, but I tried to kind of like do little, steps, because it's actually banal, but on the same hand, this is it, this is what is needed. So one thing was that we brought, Kiss the Messenger as a book. It has a catchy title. Yes, it's like, that's a good thing, but that itself is not going to sell it. So we, putting it into images, giving, it's in the digital channel, the reader the possibility to have kind of like a feeling of what it looks like, of the size, a bit of like the atmosphere where it see itself. They can be anything, this is just examples that we use, very pragmatic. It's not about like, working with like great photographers or things, but it might be a bit more than the usual, just like having the blunt book on a white background. Sometimes you need to give it a bit more atmosphere, so the readers and the viewers feel attached. You're transporting something else. And of course, I don't need to tell you how important graphics are, but it's like, it's not just about taste. It's not just about if I like it or don't like it. It has to do that I try to address certain people in this field that I act in. So therefore it has this certain aesthetics, and don't overthink things. Start light, always very important. A thing we did, here we go, is also that we translated it. It comes with a bit of text. This is me. I go a bit in front. It's a bit of a Tupperware thing. We actually found a YouTube channel. I do it in German as the book is in German, and I'm like kind of like walking through the content of the book. Again, notice how we kind of like styled the surrounding with the plants, with the golden thing. It's not by accident, it's not. I haven't done lots of YouTube before neither. I think it's a bit embarrassing. It's fine, but it's like, the truth is, lots of people are, they don't read books. They don't read books. They buy one book, they have a book at home, they don't read books anymore. I want to catch them in the sense of like, make it super light for them, make it easy. Well, they are on YouTube, we listen to stupid tutorials all the time. So why not, try to fetch them there. So far, we didn't do an ebook version because I would like to, sell the books in print first. And I think there's a certain, because it's a handbook, I want people to like go over it again. So an ebook is not the perfect format for this thing. Anyways, so we did that as a YouTube thing, and I even do little episodes there where I explain on the chapters. It's a different, it's the same story in a different channel again meant for to address an audience that you usually might not have. So this it's always stopping at the worst spot. It always gives you the worst thing. So this is the main and important question, of course. Where are my readers? Who are they? And you, as publishing houses, have the analytics, and you will talk about that in the next upcoming days. That you can learn lots nowadays from the analytics of your readers and who they are. This is why Netflix or Amazon Prime works so much better than television, because they just know what we want to watch and they know it precisely. It hasn't it hasn't reached, I'd say, like the publication market as much, but we do know where the readers are. Sometimes we don't, but it is important. It's always important. We all tend to think it from our perspective, like I'm the author, my story, my book, my work. And you need the other person. You need to think of like, who needs that? Who needs that? And we usually don't think of it like this. Another learning is, of course, keep it short and simple if you're trying to convince people. The book is the time when they're with the publication, and you need to, in order to the elevator pitch, to make it simple, you need to be, you can try to have them participate. You're, asking questions, you are doing events. You can try to entertain them. That's always working. For example, I don't see myself as a especially funny person. YouTube works mostly with like, jokes and funny things. I'm not, and then, be authentic. Another learning, you don't need to cover all of this. You just need to find your way of doing things, and that's going to be fine. I'm not a comedian, so let's, give me a break. Most people are not comedians, so I don't need a comedian to sell my book, but then I need to still, it should entertain. So one of the things is entertaining. Includes, don't be arrogant, try to explain, why this might be interesting to the other person. Again, put yourself in the shoes of the vis-a-vis, and then think bigger, of course. You can do it one by one, and we are doing it one by one normally, but of course, enlarge the channel. And that's not leading anywhere. All right, okay. Now we are coming to the actual channel. That was like a quick the technique. So you have, you don't need to do all the channels, because this is something that I get asked a lot. It depends on, how big, of course, your background or your company is, and, how, so there are certain channels that work more on a personal level, I'd say, lots of things work on a personal level. Others work more on a visual sense and in a larger audience. The personal stuff is the LinkedIn. LinkedIn became quite more successful. LinkedIn has been around almost as long as Facebook, I think. It's huge, but it wasn't important for the longest time. And it was a bit for like, the nerdy, I'd say like, more like the economy diverse people. And now I see in the past, I'd say like 2-3 years, that lots of the people, even from the creative sector, from all sectors basically, move into, it's almost like a telephone book. And some people mistrust a bit the social media. They don't want to be, they feel Facebook is already too hip for them. Somebody in their 50s or 60s, they don't feel that they need a Facebook account. Same with Instagram. And bad or good news, I tell you, TikTok is coming. It's coming. If you need the next generation of readers, I need to do TikTok now, and I have a 13-year-old daughter who's like afraid that I would actually share a channel with her, of course, she hates that, but so they're not going to stick around for that forever. But anyways, so you have, I'd say we really have, a different, or you have, for everybody nowadays, there is a community where your other friends or your other audiences or your other stakeholders are. A quick example for how we work with Versopolis, and I think you're familiar with Versopolis as the platform that's supporting the literature festival all over Europe, done by Beletrina team. And so we all had the big problem that all the festivals got canceled last year, and so we came up with the idea of the Festival of Hope, a digital festival that Versopolis was starting. My task was actually to take care of the social media channels of Versopolis. So my thought was not that I, wanted to save the partners, and I didn't know that COVID is coming either. So to me, it was just like, what could we do that we are actually having more people interested in the, in the channels that there are? And how you get people interested is that they can use it themselves. So the Festival of Hope permitted the partners to not only work in their own channel, but have a bigger channel where they actually have a greater, a greater audience that they can actually attract back to their thing. For Versopolis, it turned out that Facebook was the channel. We have an Instagram, we'll do podcasts, we have a website. So, you know, it's not sad just because it's an old, you know, because it's not the newest cutting edge channel. That doesn't mean that it does not work for you anymore. It just means you need to find, or you need to know where your people are. So if you establish a big audience on Facebook, stick with it. It's good, you know, stick with it. Be aware of like the other things coming up, but it's enough to like focus on your group and convince your core community first in order to enlarge it later. Instagram obviously works, and we have, you know, the examples that I bring in a minute are mainly taken from Instagram. You'll find it anywhere else, but yeah, YouTube, we came across that. That's more a visual thing. It's not everybody's, it's not every author's thing to, you know, to talk in front of the camera. We know that. And you know, you need to look at YouTube also as it is a trashy medium. If you look at the other, you know, stuff that's around, it's not just filming the reading and putting that on YouTube. You know, this is a bit, people are not interested in that. Then it's a documentation of your own activities. That's nice. You know, then you use it as an archive. If you want to understand the channel, you need to look at how other people do it. For my opinion, it's trash. It's like, it's wild. You know, you have like wild graphics. It's like people are blunt, even if they talk like, you know, serious stuff. It's always like people sitting in front of the screen, but it's still, it's, you know, you need to adapt, to do your research before you're starting it. You wouldn't think that Pinterest is working for you because you're not designing furniture. Well, I showed you before, you know, when I do presentations on our own work, I use Pinterest more than my website, because I can, you know, I can combine more projects. I can adapt it to the client. So I show them more architecture, or I show them more literature projects. It works for us. So maybe it works for you too. In all the channels, it's always important that it's not, it works both ways. You need to tag people. You need to interact. You need to ask for their opinion. You need to, you know, do all of this. And this is like true in the social media, but it's true with your publisher. This is a bit taken from the view of the author, you know, because me as an author, to believe that everybody else is just, you know, doing the work just because I pay them some, or we're doing it together, that's not true. You know, it works best if everybody is actually really, you know, not just always keeping, you know, it's your fault that nobody's doing this. It's your fault that you're not doing a reading. Be supportive on both ways, whatever works, you know, and also that's something that your clientele, your authors need to understand. You know, they are working alongside with you, your publishing house. You know, this is how we want the, you know, the spirit. People, you know, it's like, it's anybody can be your testimonial. You don't know how large, you know, how far, where the next, you know, where the next big shot is coming from. So treat everybody in a way that they become your testimonial. Bookstores, same thing. Bookstores seem to be like the, you know, the kind of like the leftover from the last century. But of course, bookstores have, you know, have their the pressures, niches. And as, you know, the publishing house, as the author, as the PR agency, we work together, you know. So I hope that bookstores are going to be around for a while. But of course, I use bookstores differently. I use it as inspirational spots. You know, I go there to be inspired, to find out about books that I wouldn't find. I mean, Amazon is doing a good job on that too, in the sense of like, if you like this, you might like this. Anyway, so bookstores can cover something else again. We don't want to forget it as a channel. Media, of course, you know, doing interviews, be current. I sell the book. I started the book years ago. Of course, I sell it now with something like post-COVID. We all need more attraction. I'd be stupid not to do it. Of course, that was not the intention, you know, so be smart, find current themes that connect to the today, even if, you know, the publication is coming out of a different era. You know, share, link it, you know, to other channels. This is how you enlarge, you know, any kind of group of friends and any kind of social media. I'm speeding up a bit so we're not running late with the first lecture already. So more channels are coming in. I'll show you a bit on how we did it. So I was invited on national television. This is for sure not my audience. It was like the breakfast television. It's like my mother is watching this, you know? So I was trying to tell the story a bit of like talking to my mother telling it to her grandchildren, you know. So I was adapting the book to, you know, to, I don't know, to the hair cutting person, to the florist, to the makeup artist, to that kind of thing. Important to me in the end was because nobody that I know besides my mother is actually watching this emission on television, but it's 500,000 people, it's lots of people, you know, but it's just not my core audience. But what's important to me is that I picture it and I link it back to my channels where my audience is, who are impressed seeing me on television, you know. So it's this, you need to adapt it to the channel. Don't always have the same claim wherever you are. And on television at 7 o'clock in the morning, I don't need to say the same thing as I'm telling you people now, you know. So you need to adapt it, but then, you know, transport it back to your channel. Of course, you know, they're selling it through online on the publishing house website, you know, and I'm in good audience. I want this to be, you know, so the website of a publishing house, even if that's not the main point of sale, but this is again giving a bit of like the, you know, the context of who else is selling their books there. This is again, you know, going back to the garden idea, that is important to me. Yes, we did say that we are doing the YouTube. I don't have a community on YouTube yet, you know, so I have to bring it back into a channel where it already exists, hoping the people from my Instagram will go over to my YouTube, you know. So you're linking those two again, and of course to every other channel in order to find as many people, or have the chance that as many people see it as possible. We're also doing an ABC podcast that's sometimes in English and sometimes in German. I love podcasts, and most of us do, I guess. You know, we all learned. I use it when I'm running. I use it when I'm cooking, and it's a very simple way of, you know, picking people's brains. And I do it with clients, and I do it with people that I think is interesting. And it's much easier than doing video because it's not visual; it's just audio. I do it with my blunt iPhone. I find this, you know, is totally sufficient. Listen in. I can totally, you know, suggest if you're not doing it yet, it still has enormous growth. I mean, YouTube has some almost 30 million channels. When we talk podcasts globally, it's, of course, it's exploding, but then we're talking 2 million and not, you know, almost 30. So there is, you know, there is air. Use it in your language, you know, use it in English, wherever. And the big advantage of the podcast is it stays. You know, it's not like a post on the social media. You know, I think people, it's perfect. Do a podcast. So I'm a fan of a podcast. So this is something I can advise. And good old newsletter. You know, it's like the good old thing that you probably have as a publishing house. We all know that people don't want to subscribe for the newsletters anymore, but it is still a medium. Again, you need to be visual. You need to be, you know, smart in order, you know, keep it simple. But newsletters do work still. So don't think that only like the new shit works. All the other stuff works still as well. And good old Facebook, you know, and then, you know, having it in the bookstore and picturing that and sharing the post from the bookstore where they sell it is again helping them, helping us, all good. So now we have a look a bit of like, you know, what others were doing. And one of the things is like, you know, this animate others to read. I think this is something we learned from the first time when we hold the lecture. You know, your competitor is not the other authors or publishing houses. Your competitors are Netflix and the social media. You know, that's actually who you're competing with. And this is where people are. People are not necessarily, it's like, it's, you know, reading. It's, I see that with, you know, generation. So, you know, have people actually read your book, and hashtagging this is a very simple copy paste, you know, people reading your book. It's like, it's as simple as it is. And then, you know, visualize with words. You know, it's like we work with words. There is possibilities to bring words into visualization, little quotes. This is how I sometimes find books, because somebody is quoting them in a different channel and I get intrigued. Again, you know, you don't need to give the whole story, but use in the simple way of intriguing and making, you know, people curious about what's coming. Then again, you know, you need to follow up on your hashtags and your activities. You know, it's not just doing it and then forgetting about it. You know, you need to look it up. If you're creating a hashtag that works in, you know, Facebook and in Instagram and in all the other things, you need to see how are people using it, and you see how people are picturing it. It's a lifestyle matter. Books become lifestyle, you know, that's a truth. Play it, you know, don't be shy, play with it. And then it's again gonna be, you know, attracting more people. Share your story. I don't know if you're familiar, her name is Steffi Sagnager. She is more a comedian than an author, I'd say, but she is very, very good in like sharing her every day. She's sharing her travels, her readings. She's doing, you know, little drawings. Of course, if you have authors in your program, if they're like, you know, personalities and outspoken characters, that's, you know, something to be grateful for. But if that's not the case, it's like going back on the very beginning of like, you know, what's the personality, what's the narrative, in order to yeah, to interest the others. This is the end. This is pretty much the end. I don't know if we have time for more questions, but this is the magic. Be interested in the others. Today, I said that in the last lecture, I'm saying it to a black box, and I don't know anything about you people, which is like the contrary on what I'm saying here, of like, be interested in others. And if we're doing it in life, you know, I would start basically with, you know, asking you where you're standing and what you're already doing and where you are. We don't have the time and like the Zooming thing here now. But
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Anna, so much. It was very inspirational beginning of our week. So thank you for all your exciting examples and stories. I would like to encourage our audience to join us. I know we are already into the timing for coffee break, but we can still squeeze in a couple of short questions and short answers. So I would like to encourage everyone that is here with us. In the time when you're all getting ready, I have this small question. Because Anna, you were saying one of your mottos was, let's leave my own bubble and find new readers. So when you went to this morning television, YouTube channels and so on, how to put it, how fruitful that was? What happened? What were the new bubbles that you actually managed to reach?
I mean, to be honest, you know, the truth is where I sell the most books is really within the community, in the sense of like, you know, people who were kind of like waiting for the book, kind of like know me through other circles, who know the publishing house. This is the people that are actually the easiest to be convinced, meaning, you know, to build up the community before is very grateful and fruitful. There's like one-time wonders on like being on television or being on, you know, in advertisement in magazines. It did attract some, but it's not, I mean, it takes lots of effort to get on those shows, you know. I would wonder if that's like the right way how to put your energy in, you know. If it's easy, this came easy, you know. If it's like, if I don't have to like spend like 3 months in like working on the editors or something, then go with it, you know, go with the flow. That's another thing, you know, don't overthink things, but take every opportunity that you have. Be generous with what you have, you know, be generous with your knowledge. Take it. I take the books basically everywhere into every dinner, because there's always somebody that I hadn't on my list of like people that I feel would actually need it. Another thing that does work is, of course, you know, we do work sometimes with the university, and you know, giving lectures to students in the field of PR and communications. And if the professor is putting it on the reading list and you have 150 students who must read it anyways, of course that's like a one catch all, you know. So I mean, that's very particular for this book, but then you need to think of like, so I convinced this one person who is reaching out to that many, you know, students, etc., that it's, you know, that might be very effective on, if you're talking sales. If I'm talking the utility for myself as a company, I don't even need to sell the book, you know. The sales are not the money, you know. If there's a single client coming, or like a mid-sized client, I'd say, that would cover the production costs, you know. So to me, it's actually much more important to tell people, you don't need to do it yourself, I do it for you anyways. But you know, I do know it that well that I can actually write a book about it, or I'm trying to, you know. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Anna. I think that your presentation was so clear and it gave us so much food for thought that actually we are all, getting into what you were saying just now. So, also people are running to get their cups of coffee. So what I would like to do is, again, thank you so much for your presentation, for your speech. Thank you. And of course, good luck to Vienna. Enjoy your newly gained freedom. You can go and have a coffee outside, not only in your kitchen. So
yes,
please
I'll be with
meet you, Anna, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
Good
having me on. All the best. Bye-bye.
Okay. And kar mi zdaj delamo tukaj, I'm not sure whether I should speak English or I should speak Slovenian, so I'll just continue with English. We have 15 minutes coffee break. So let's meet at, well, let's say 11 and 5 minutes. After when we return to our event, we will hear presentation of good practices. Our guests, our presenter will be Miha Kovač, editor, publisher, author, and professor at Ljubljana University. And in Zagreb, we will be joined by Sejid Serdarević, editor-in-chief of Fraktura Publishing House. So see you all in 15 minutes. See you all at 11:05. Thank you. Hi there. The future of publishing is back with the next interesting and relevant debate. We have Miha Kovač with us. He knows all there is to know about publishing business from all different aspects. And it is my pleasure to greet our guest in Zagreb. This is Sejid Serdarević, editor-in-chief of Fraktura Publishing House, with numerous local and regional awards. Among them, for instance, Fraktura was selected as the best international publisher in London a few years ago. The moderator of the following presentation will be Petra Slamić, with great expertise in the area of marketing and PR business. Hello, Petra. You might give us some basic idea about what three of you will be talking about.
Hello and welcome everybody. We will be talking about digital transformation in publishing. That would be the most general description about our talk. Hopefully. We will see what our guests will actually talk
let's get
about.
rid of all analog things in our life. No, just joking. Okay.
Let's go. Let's start. Hello, Sejid in
Hello,
Zagreb. As said, Sejid Serdarević is editor-in-chief at Fraktura Publishing House in Zagreb, Croatia. And besides me now sits Miha Kovač. He is a professor at the Department of Librarianship, Information Science and Book Science at the University of Ljubljana, but also an author, editor and publisher. So let's start at the beginning. Miha, I would like to ask you about the basics. How many people in Slovenia are readers? What % of the total population? And how many people are borrowing books from libraries and how many are buying books?
Well, that is a kind of question which gets the same answer for last 50 years. Namely, about 1/2 of Slovenian population doesn't read. So book-wise, Slovenia has only 1 million inhabitants because the other million is not reading books. And this is so for last 50 years. And to be completely honest, I don't know why it is so. I have some theories, but this is really indeed a tough question, because in last 50 years, many things in book world has changed in the way that library network become better in last 50 years. Book production become better in the way that more diverse books are being published in Slovenian language. And if you want to purchase books are more accessible than ever, because there is a set of online bookstores which sell book to any corner of the world where a Slovenian book reader lives. And last but not least, we have also ebooks which you can read on your reading devices. So I wouldn't say that the main reason for this 50% of book readers in the general population is linked to the library and publishing network. There are some other broader cultural reasons for this. And for example, if you look if you compare Slovenian and Norwegian reading attitudes, you quite quickly figure out that in Norway, about almost 90% of parents are often reading to their kids in the evenings. And in Slovenia, this is done by only 1/3 of the families. And a lot of research which has been done on reading habits and reading comprehension in Europe indicates that people who are being read as children become readers afterwards. So early reading socialization can produce book readers. If one doesn't have parents like this, then a lot could be done by education, by primary and secondary education, and by the library networks. And here, at least in the terms of Slovenia, I would start looking for the answer to this question. Why we have only half of the population who reads. And if I may, I would add one more thing, which is also very important and which needs to be understood if we want to survive in reading business or in the book business, namely the way how people read is changing quickly. Digital media has changed the way how we access information. What we do when we use smartphones, tablets, and computers is that we usually skim the information. We change at what we look in a very fast pace. We don't focus into one content. When we use the tablets and phones, we are used to content which sings, dances, moves, in short, to the content which has audio and video components. And this kind of approach to information is changing our abilities to focus. So if you give a kid who is 2 years old a smartphone, he will not develop the ability to focus and to concentrate to something what is still, because printed words are still. And this change, this reading change that we skim information is, this is one of the biggest dangers I think we are facing, because this skimming ability might, how to say, overdrive or overread our ability to read concentrated and focus a linear long form content. And this is one of the biggest challenges of our civilization in next years, I think. And book industry, which with its ups and downs, is a very good litmus paper which shows how these attitudes towards reading are changing in a given society.
Thank you, Micha. Said, please comment. How is it in Croatia in regard to how many readers are there in your 4 million country? Please.
Hi, Petra. Hi, Micha. Hi, everybody. So nice to see you. So we can put the things pessimistic or optimistic. So we have half of the people who are reading the books, not half of the people who are not reading the books. So the situation is more or less very similar like in Slovenia. So there is, maybe we can talk about it, that is something that we bring from ex-Yugoslavia, or I don't know how long, but so the half of the population that is not reading the books, another half is reading the books. So when we are thinking about of those half population who are not reading the books, I think that we must much more concentrated on the new generations, as Micha said, with I think it needs to start with the kindergartens, and then after in the primary and secondary schools. But what is also a danger is not to lose the other half who are reading. So because we are now in the time when the book is not the only or not the main source of getting information or main source of getting how you spend your free time. So if we talk about belletristics, so we are now in that that time when us aim as the industry, as the book industry, but also as the professionals from all sides, from authors to the translators to the university professors, and of course publishers and booksellers and librarians, we all need to think on those people who are reading and not to lose them. So that is something that is, I think, very important. And that is when we are now in this time of pandemic, the last year and a half, what we saw that people are going back to read because there are spend too many time on the all kind of digital equipment. So that is very positive. But when all of those stops, we need to get those people hacked on reading. So that is something that is digital transformation is of course very good to send them information about it, but also how to all of those things which will be changed. That means we are now in the conference, which is online conference, but all of those possibilities that we now can see the book events in London or New York simultaneously here and there, and festivals and book presentations. So that is something that we need to getting, let's say, to the new generation on the one thing, and to all of those people who are still reading, to keep them going on reading.
As we all live and work in small countries, Slovenia has 2 million inhabitants and Croatia 4, we are used to thinking big in a small frame. Because of the limited number of people who can speak Slovenian or Croatian, it's impossible in our countries to think about scalability. But we can and have to be flexible, engaging and experimental, since we can test innovative ideas in our markets for a small amount of money. Micha, how would you frame the cultural, economic differences between small and big markets? What do you think? What are our advantages and what are the advantages of bigger nations?
Well, if you would ask me this question 10 years ago, I would say that the main difference between small and big markets is the way how they are, the ownership of publishing and bookselling enterprises is organized. And in the big markets, it was common that they have a kind of a horizontal integration, what means that publishers didn't own booksellers or the other way around. And in the small market, it was quite common that the biggest publishers owned the bookstores, or as is the case, for example, in Slovenia, in Estonia, the biggest bookstore chains owns some publishers. But this started to change about 10-15 years ago with the growth of Amazon, which suddenly became also a publisher. So this vertical organization of publishing started to appear also in the big markets, and which means that, you know, Amazon sometimes reminds me to the good old Soviet Ministry of the Book. The only difference being that Amazon is highly efficient and Soviet Ministry of the Book was highly inefficient. What is quite dangerous, as a matter of fact, because the big monopoles are growing in Western markets. And that's something what we are in small markets quite used to, and we need how to tackle this. So this is one thing which is started to disappear. But what, of course, makes the difference are actually the bestsellers. Because if you produce a bestseller on German, French, English, Italian market, you can sell 100,000 copies, 200,000 copies, 500,000 copies. But in Slovenia or in Croatia, when we sell 5,000 books, we are extremely happy, and we say, wow, we have a huge bestseller. And what difference does this make? Obviously, we don't generate that amounts of money with bestsellers as could be done in West European markets, or even in, of course, in the Russian market or in Chinese market. So the amount of money which publishers have available for investing into new titles, into building new authorial brands, into new technological changes. This amount of money which we have in Slovenia and Croatia and similar small markets is much smaller than in the big markets. And this means that, you know, we have to be more cunning than they are. That's the only secret how we can survive, I would say.
Say it. What do you think? How can small markets with small languages, so to say, compare to big European markets? Are we doomed with our size, or are we ideal size for being above average creative? And of course, all our activities very optimized.
So it is. So that is the Miha already told almost the half of those story. But on the other hand, what is extremely for every publisher in the small market, we need to be very picky. So when we are decided what books should we publish or not publish, we are more picky than the big market. On the other hand, so amount of the books that are produced in those small markets are around, I don't know, in Slovenia, it's around 5,000 books a year. Croatia is almost like that. So all small markets are around 5 to 10,000 books a year maximum, including all kinds of the books. And then when we are talking about the books that are going to the bookstores, that is even smaller. So, and our positive side on that is that we can, following the trends, we can translate the most important authors all the time. And so you don't have so many of those books that are not on the bestseller list in the bigger countries. So that is one point of the view. And then second point of the view is, of course, that when you are thinking about quality literature, that is something that we are doing. So it is also your opportunity is because your concurrence is not too big on your market. There's not so many publishing houses, so you can be you can choose really good books. So that is one thing. On the other hand, those small print runs that we have as the first print runs, which could be from 500, 800, 1000 is kind of the usually first print run in the Croatia, and even when you first print run have something that is 2000, so that is something that you think that could be a huge bestseller. So with those with that, so some of our costs are much smaller. So the advances that we pay, the stock that you have, or the distribution is not so expensive. So that is on the one hand, of course, and that is one thing. And then you have those that we are small and we can be very quick in making decisions. When you are in the big companies, I don't know, you name it, Random House, Bertelsmann, so any kind, stock in Italy, in France, or Feltrinelli in Italy. So from when you decided to produce buy the book, and when you read the book, and when you need to decide about the book, so that is much more process is much more complicated. And of course, the money and all of those big publishing houses, what we can see, are more careful about what would they publish. So they are going much more to the mainstream. And so we, as a smaller publishing houses with a not so big, so if you printed something 1000, so you wouldn't lose so many money if your sales will be like 30%. But if you are put on the market like 10,000 books and then you sell only 1,000 copies, so that could be really challenging. So that is our advantages, and we also need to implement more quickly all of those digital tools that are all around us.
Thank
Petra,
you. Micha would like to add something to it, please.
Just a statistical thing. In Slovenia, we quite often say we publish 5,000 books per year. What is, as a matter of fact, not true, because we do publish 5,000 items with ISBN, because the basis for these statistics are the number of issued ISBN numbers. But a significant amount of these publications which got ISBN numbers are not produced for the sales on the market. And different formats of the same title get different ISBNs. So a book published in electronic format, in paperback, and in hardcover gets 3 different ISBNs. So the number of book titles published in Slovenia is much lower. I would say 3,500 per year approximately. But this still means 10 bloody books per day in a year. And that's a lot. That's still a lot, because this requires, there is not a single person, I think, in Slovenia who would be capable of looking at this high amount of books. And I would say this is the biggest change which took place in the last 20 years in publishing. And this change, this huge amount of titles which appear on a daily basis in all the markets, requires a lot of marketing skills from the side of the publisher to make these titles visible.
Of course. Let's turn to breaking the rules and out-of-the-box thinking to innovate and broaden customer relations. So digital communication channels also bring us a lot of opportunities to be creative and innovative. For me, a great case is by a publishing house that produces 2 cover designs for 1 book and makes an advertising campaign on Facebook as an A/B test to get pre-orders for the book. So the cover that wins, that means get the most pre-orders, goes to the printing house, and the second cover is forgotten. I think this is a great case of a customer centricity. What's your favorite out-of-the-box case study, Said? Did you do something unusual at Fraktura to promote any of your titles?
So thank you, Petra, for question. So we all the time need to be very innovative. So how to use all kind of digital platforms, how to be in front of their algorithms, which are narrowing in your marketing, they are narrowing your ideas. So we do different kind of things. We never do that kind of 2 covers that are going to print, but we do sometimes the books with the same books with the 3 covers on the market and put it, and that is very interesting how the people are reacting on that kind of those things. We also do a lot of things on the promotional side, how to promote the books, how to get engaging more audience, how to get the audience from other cultural activities to see the books. So we, for example, what we are doing for the, and that was really nice idea was, for example, for the last few years, there is kind of the art park in the center of Zagreb, and there is on the different ways. So we make the branch for the reading, for example, and then people get there our books. They can read the books, sit there, read the books, take the photos, and the most photo that means most likes, for example, get that reader get some books. Or for example, when we have a marketing campaign for the first David Lagerfeld book, that means 4th in the series of Millennium. So at the Zagreb main square, we put the photo booth where people can doing their photos with the books, and they get their personalized bookmark. So that is something. So every day we try to invite something in the very narrowing budget that we have. So that is, so when you have produced, as we said, that when your usual print run is 1,000, so the money that you can invest in the marketing is also very, very small. So you need to be to think all the time to think out of the box. What would be a thing that will people get attention on the books? For example, I don't know, like 6-7 years ago, there was we made lots of kind of those videos for the books as a kind of the book trailer. That was popular in that time. That is not popular anymore. So we stopped with that practice, and we're doing something different to promote the book. What we saw now that people are still like to have chat with the author directly. That is for example. And what was the last thing that we are really doing, and we are very proud of that. It was during the pandemic. We have a few book promotion where we have selling the books and selling the tickets for the online event, like the online concert with the author. So people can either buy the book plus get free online meeting with the author, or they can only have a free entrance in that conversation. So, and that was really interesting because we go out of the border of Croatia. So, like there we have made like 250 books was sold for that event, and that only and then plus like 20 or 30 people buy only to read to listen the event. And that was from all hours. So it was from Croatia. So we get some orders from Germany, US, Australia. So that was really benefit of our pandemic and digital possibilities that we made it. So it was like, and then the comments of the people were really, really great. So there were comments during the events, and then even after that, some families gathering in front of their computers and television, and Lucas making conversation on the new book.
Thank you, Said. What do you say, Micha? What is your favorite out-of-the-box case study in the publishing industry?
Well, I would say, it's not only what you and Said mentioned, it's becoming quite common that now authors test their ideas in blogs or in Facebook. There are, even in Slovenia, quite a few authors who started to write posts on Facebook or in blogs. And then when they got a certain reaction from the readers, they started to publish these blogs and Facebook posts in books. We will talk to one of them on Wednesday. It's Kamenko Kesar, who is one of the pioneers in this area. And I would say that this is almost in the box thinking now. When
it became a standard, right?
It became a standard, yeah, because. For example, the first big thing which happened in publishing, and I am ashamed that I mentioned this, is 50 Grades of Shame, which actually started as a fan fiction and then moved to a kind of the blog. And when this blog has about 200,000 readers, the whole content was turned into a book. Or if I use a more, let's say, highbrow example, Rupi Kaur, who is one of the most popular contemporary poets, started to write her poetry and publish it on Instagram in combination with pictures. So one could even ask, why the heck do these successful digital authors publish their stuff in print? And again, I would say the answer is quite simple. It's, first of all, it's a kind of pride, because when you print something, you froze the product in time, you make it look eternal. And the second reason is because it's still more easy to make money by selling books than by posting things in internet. So this is a kind of standard approach, I would say, today. And what is even more interesting is that, you know, it's quite easy to number quite a few cases how people created good books from online publications, but I don't know anything that took the other way around. You know, I don't know any book which become a successful set of Facebook or Twitter or Instagram posts. So it's, in short, I would say it's a kind of standard approach today for some type of the authors to test their ideas in online realm. And even worse, you know, when I talk with some publishing colleagues from bigger markets, their general approach is, we don't, unless it's Elena Ferrante, of course, but we don't publish authors who are not posting on social media and who don't have big number of followers, because this is a kind of a litmus paper, a kind of a test for communication abilities of the authors. And today we live in a shitty times, where in times in which everybody has to promote himself and his products. That's how it is.
At this point, I have to mention Goran Vojnović, of course, because Slovenian readers mostly know him. He is one of the authors that does not use social media.
Yes.
He's actually publicly against it. So that's my personal frustration, because we have to work with him.
I fully understand him, but don't forget that he publishes a column every Saturday in one of Slovenian daily papers. So he's very much present in Slovenian media landscape.
Yes, but always offline, right?
Well, you have to invent. I mean, authors can invent it themselves in all kinds of different ways. And the path which was chosen by Goran Vojnović is, of course, more difficult. And it's more, let's say, appropriate for a kind of authors who intend to write a little bit more highbrow fiction.
Thank you. So let's switch to audience-centric marketing. Do we have a capability of putting our customers in the center of our business? At Beletrina, we addressed the problem of aging readers that are not able to read books with small letters, with enlargement of the fonts in our books. But besides that, are we getting enough insights from our readers? Are we asking them enough questions, listening to what they have to say, and most importantly, put their thoughts or their suggestions into practice? What would you say, Said? How is it in Fraktura?
So it is like, I'm a little bit conservative on that question. So because editors are here that they have like overlook on the theme. Editors are there to make the choosing, so the making the profile of the publishing house. So that is depending on what you want to be, or what kind of the message you want to send. So when you think about it, if you're going too many for the clicks or things like that, what we see in the newspapers, for example, in our market, so then the people are clickbait that kind of things, which is kind of those very trashy or very attractive photos or whatever on the one hand, but then we have all our newspapers are struggling now with selling of those printing copies, and that is on the century nearest lowest example. So I think that we are here not only to follow the trends, but we are here to making the trends. So we are the ones who are making the trends. Of course, we are listening for our readers. What could be better? So should we have, like you said, what is about font? What is about, I don't know, do we need to reprint some of the books that are a long time is not a long time on to be selling. What could be better in the book presentation? So we are what is for us very important is book fairs where we meet our readers, and nowadays, of course, all the time Facebook when we are here asking them questions, or talk with them in the bookstore. But at the end, I think the publisher is here, the one who is making decision and who take all the risk of to be on the market. So, and our choice is something, if we are consistent in our choices, so people are then following us. That is, for example, that what we saw from our readers. So people are, so, oh, you publish it. I never heard about that author, but I believe that you read it and you choose that, because if it's published under your brand, so that is something that is value, and that's something that I need to take a look on that. So, because if you are only following the trends, then you will be then you get, I think, in that kind of going in narrowing your path. So we are here to open path to be much more wider.
Thank you, Said. What would you add, Miha?
Well, I would firstly add just 2 sentences to our Vojnović discussion before. Namely, what I forgot to say is that this Saturday I've seen his column in at least 3 Facebook posts. So he's very much present in social media by other people copying his columns.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the best possible promotion you can have.
That's public relations.
When other people promote you, it's much more solid than when you promote yourself. So Vojnović is very much present on social media. He just doesn't know it. And regarding what said, I very much agree with him that it's basically publishers who have to follow their lead in what they publish. And of course, there is the technical aspect of publishing, like the size of the font, the format of the books, and so on and so forth. And that's something what we figure out what works best from testing on the market. But regarding the content, I pretty much the Steve Jobs saying that users don't know what they want until they see it. And it's very much the same, I think, in publisher. Readers don't know what they would like to read as long as they don't see it. And when they see it, they like it or they don't like it. So that's the main business of the publisher, to put interesting text on the market. And that's why a publisher is always an entrepreneur, because he or she is testing the market with new content. And sometimes one succeeds, sometimes one fails, but that's what makes the book market alive and interesting. We have a lot of interesting content there, and some of this content survives, but some parts of this content just die, fade away.
Okay.
Can I add something?
So let's talk about the retention and loyalty of our customers.
Say it once, Susanne.
Said wants to say something. I'm really sorry, okay. I didn't notice.
I just want to add something. So that is something that is sometimes what is also your aim as a publisher, to find the right time to put something on the market. Timing. Because sometimes timing is really important. Because sometimes 6 months, if you put something 6 months earlier on the market or 6 months later, that book could be failure. And to put it in the right time, it is really, really important. So it's kind of, you have some content, and if you are too early or too late, that content could be lost.
I have a great case now in my mind. Ana Roša, the famous chef from Slovenia, received 2 Michelin stars last year, and it was just a few days after we published her monography. So that was great timing. Because everything got really well connected. Okay, let's continue with the retention and loyalty of our customers. How do we change a one-off buyer to a regular buyer? What kind of strategies would you recommend? Seth, please continue.
Oh, that is something that we are trying again. So I think the one thing is you need to be faithful on yourself and on your program. You need to not to cheat the buyers for quick wins. So because all publishing business is kind of a marathon, and it is not 100-meter
Sprint.
sprint. So that is one thing. Then you need to recommend them different kind of the books. So some kind of those tools, digital tools are helping. It's very helpful in that. So if you have a good CRM that you can see what people are liking, but it is not only just if you are like that, you may be like that. You need to open for the people for the next step sometimes, for the different kind, because people don't want to read all the time same kind of the stories. So people want it something more. You need to get all kind of information and to serve information on the proper way to your audience. So there is a lot of platforms, and that is something that is for us as a small part in all small countries. So even the big publisher are in that kind of small publishers. When you think about it, how to follow and how to choose the right platform on which you are addressing to the people your ideas. So of course it is newsletters, it is Facebook, it could be Twitter, it could be, I don't know, TikTok, it could be Instagram, it could be Pinterest. It is a lot of those kind of the things. For us, it's a really important live talk with the people. So during the fairs, we usually, all our editors are usually on the fairs, talking with the, because most of the fairs in Croatia, like in Slovenia, are B2C, not B2B. So then we are talking with the people. So we are trying to remember their faces. So we recommend them. So, and the most reward for us is when you get like 1 year later, people say, "Oh, you recommend me those 2 books. I buy it. I like it. What could you recommend me now?" So that is the really awarding. So that is something that we are also doing now. We are opening our first bookstore during pandemic, and all our booksellers need to read all kinds of the books that are in the bookstore. So they need to know how to recommend the books to the people. People want to come and talk. So that is something I think that is our advantage when you think about digital market and so on. The book are still it is still the object. People like the object, how it looks like, how they feel the paper and all of things, and people like to talk about it. So that is kind. So it could not be another supermarket where you just come in, put your books, and then on the automatic cashier you go out. So I think that in the future people want to talk more to get that social contact. So I think it will be even after pandemic even more. So that is the reason why I need to go further on with the fairs, with the festivals, with all of those kinds where author, editors, and the audience could meet. So I think that is crucial for all of us in our branch to get real comments, not only the small comments like this, like on the Facebook.
Thank you. So let's finish this talk with your thoughts about the future of book publishing. What do you foresee for the future? How will COVID-19 pandemic influenced the book publishing market? And do we have enough credible studies to base our decisions upon in the future? Would you start, Micha?
Yeah, well, I would say we don't know anything about the future, as is usually the case with the future. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a future. So, but we can learn, we can get some ideas from what happened in last year. And my guess is that nothing will stay the same. Book fairs will change, the way how bookstores operate will change to an extent, and also the way how publishers market their books will change to an extent. In short, what I think COVID produced was that it gave a huge push to the digitalization of publishing. So we will just have to reinvent new forms. I firmly believe that book fairs will remain because people like to meet each other, they like to meet authors, they like to feel and touch the books they want to buy. It will be the same case with bookstores, but at the same time, we will use digital tools more in order to, I don't know, stream the events which take place at the book fair, to communicate with our customers as a bookstore, to communicate with our readers as a publisher. So, and I think this will create a new amalgam of publishing skills which will take place in next few years. As I said, how will it look like? I don't know. But there is one thing I would like to stay the same or to change to better, namely what many publishers are doing today is they sprint a marathon. They try to publish as many books as possible, and they don't care enough for the textual quality of the product they made. So what I sincerely hope is that most of the books published by publishers will be better edited, will be edited with more care, more patience, and more love as they are now.
Thank you, Micha. What would you add, Said? What do you think is waiting for us in the near future after the pandemic?
What we have, as one of our authors said, it's only our past. So we are living in our today, and future is future because we need to learn something from the past, of course, but we also need to add something. So the COVID situation, I think, was only not only in the publishing business but all over. It's just rapidly push things that will happen anyhow. So it happened much more quicker in a timeline that we have. So we are now that things that we are doing now, that is something that we will be maybe doing in the normal situation in 25, but we are doing now in the 21. So had that kind of the conference. But what will remain? So I think the good quality of the books will remain. The good books will remain. So we never know how many of that books will remain in the period after 50 years. What we also saw, what is kind of the trend which started before pandemic, but during pandemic it was, I think, even more seen, that people are looking back into kind of the modern classics or forgotten classics, going back to the basics, and from that basic to rebuild something new, or to build something which would be more quality, more not maybe running after one hit on the another hit. So we need now to produce. So that is something that we are doing all the time. But I think what I saw from the talks with the colleagues from all over the world, so they are more picky than they used to be. We will see, I think, the producing of the books which are going to the market will be smaller, but in the more quality. And that what, on the other hand, we will have maybe more self-publishing books. So that is something that is what is to be seen, because a lot of people will be seen, okay, I can do it, my video, I can do it, I can publish my book, I will jump over the publishing house and go direct to the audience. So we will see what will happen with that, but I'm still thinking that in those kind of those, as Miha said, as Steve Jobs said, we are here to making choice for the people, to bring those books to the people and to stand with the quality of the books with our brand. So I think the quality is something that is really, really important, and we all need to be focused on the quality of on all levels, from the text level to the producing level.
So, in short, quality, credibility of publishing houses, and we are still, all of us are waiting for some more human contact that comes from events and visiting the bookstores. So thank you very much, Sejt Serdarević in Zagreb and Miha Kovač here in Ljubljana, and thanks to all of you who were listening to our talk.
Okay, I have to thank you, Petra, as well, and of course, Sejt and Miha. Thank you for sharing your trade secrets with us. Please, also, dear audience, thank you for your attention. Thank you for staying with us. Please join us again tomorrow when we will hear from, I could easily say, legendary Redinger Vischenbart, who, apart from being very knowledgeable in all walks of publishing business, he also knows about changes that are happening in the world in the area of publishing business. Especially because of pandemics. We have seen what happened in the world last year. So basically digital has benefited while analog has struggled. And let's ask tomorrow Redinger all about it. Stay well until then, and we'll see you all tomorrow.